FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. We are in New York City. The date is April 10th, 2019. I'm here for a couple of more days. You'll have to put up with the less than perfect sound that you're receiving now. I mean, this city, I don't know how people survive here, and I lived here for 15 years. The noise is nonstop, 24/7. Garbage trucks, sirens, cars skidding, traffic noise. It's madness. It's a madhouse. I don't know how any of you in New York City still live here, but probably after you get your tax bill for this year, a lot less of you are going to be living here next year anyway. You'll finally get the idea, like I did. You're a tax hostage. New York City just has and New York State, the two of them combined, just has a target on your back. If you make any money, they want more than their fair share, as somebody once said, and therefore you will be leaving. But in any event, questions, comments, be a part of the show. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. So, political correctness, is it good? Is it bad? Is it hurting the country? Is it helping it? Well, our good friend, Dr. John Huber, is back with us. John, you're a clinical psychologist. You kind of deal with things like this. So what is the deal with political correctness? It seems like this recent study, many of you out there believe that it really is destructive. It is a negative to society and destructive to the public discourse.
Absolutely. And what we see is, in general, 80% of Americans believe political correctness is a problem. And that is across the board. Now, what I think is even more telling is that people aged 24 to 29, 74% of those people believe it is a problem. And I think that's really indicative to what's going up and then what's coming up in the future. In addition, another, people under age 24, 79% of those people think that there is a problem with that. And it's kind of scary when you start thinking about this country is built on the ability to have open discourse. And all of a sudden you got universities and colleges and high school teachers talking about trigger words. You can't say that because you might offend somebody. And, the whole argument is we've always been able to have an open discourse, whether you like what I have to say or not. And we can discuss it, and we can work through our issues and our problems.
Agree to disagree, right?
But by shutting down, exactly, and by shutting down half of the communication, what happens then is you go around and you disenfranchise half the population. And, this talk of civil war and all this type of stuff, the reason why that blossoms is because they don't feel like they are being heard, and it's because they're being shut down with an ism. You're into racism, or you're into misogyny, or whatever it is, you are now an ism, and you can't prove a negative. You can't say, no, I'm not a racist all day long. That you can say it, but you can't prove it. And if you're not a racist, if somebody says you are, the industry, the media, the population in our culture just assumes, well, you must be, or they wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, that's like the old
and it's very problematic.
That's like the old joke, when did you stop beating your wife, right? I never beat my wife. No, we didn't ask you that. We only wanted to know when you stopped. So you can't prove that you never beat her. And it puts you in a situation. So, one of the things I feel here, and I can't prove this, but the breakdown of manners and common courtesy in society seems to go hand in hand with this breakdown in dialogue, in civility, in the ability to handle people who might have different views than you yourself have. And look, one of the things with manners is, don't say anything unless you have something nice to say. Agree to disagree. You can disagree with somebody without being disagreeable. How did they not learn these lessons, Dr. Huber?
Well, they stopped teaching things like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And they started saying, but feelings are more important than rational thought. Mm-hmm. And that's where we get into trouble. I mean, what happens, for example, when you're out hiking in the woods, you come across a bear and a bear cub. This fight or flight mechanism kicks in, and it redistributes all the blood to your extremities, increases your heart rate, things like that, so you can be a better fighter, so that you have more energy and you can run faster. Well, while that's happening, the exact same thing happens in your brain, and we've theorized this, but over the past 3 or 4 years with functional MRIs, we've actually proven this. What happens is your brain redistributes blood flow from your frontal lobe, where our executive thoughts are, and moves it to our limbic system, where all our emotions are. Because when you're acting emotionally, you're not thinking, oh, I could get hurt. You're thinking, I'm going to do everything I can to get away from this person or this thing. Now, what's happened is we have been trained the minute emotion kicks into a situation because of key phrases like, oh, that's a trigger word. We're being trained to change our physiology to immediately jump into that fight or flight mode. So we no longer think rationally when somebody pulls out the race card, for example, or when they start calling somebody a bad word or a bad name. And it's back to a 101 debate, high school 101 debate, where they teach you that the minute they start calling names, they don't have the data, the research to support their argument. And, that's the best way to obfuscate and redirect attention from people. You don't have the data to support your argument, so let's turn around and make you an evil person so nobody listens to you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a bad ploy. And we're sick of it as a population. 80% are tired of this. But how do we go back, and what's the next step?
Hey, and, this brings me to another thing. You're the expert in brain function. So we have these news shows, and they don't deal in facts. They deal in images and manipulating your emotion. So they want to get a point across. They just show a picture of a starving kid someplace. And this kid, Donald Trump is starving this child. Isn't it a crime against humanity? And what happens when the mind sees that image? Like you said, it bypasses the executive functions. It goes right into emotion, and the person buys in, and they don't even know they've been manipulated into this belief.
Absolutely. And, it's crazy. But what happens is they do this enough times, and then they don't even have to show the picture. They just have to say Donald Trump. And that same thing happens because now it is a stimulus response mechanism, much like Pavlov's ringing the bell. They taught the population to do that. And it's a very sad thing. I just saw a research study that said, because of the Mueller investigations, that they have been mentioning nationwide Trump's name something like 4,000 times a day. And you do that, you pair it with this, well, he's obviously in collusion with the Russian government, which collusion isn't even against the law according to what we've got right now. So, why are they doing all this? Because they're creating this stimulus response mechanism. Because Trump, A, isn't a Republican, he isn't a Democrat, and neither party really knows how to handle him, and they're afraid of him.
Yeah, it's so true. It's a Pavlovian response. So Trump derangement syndrome is part conditioning, where these people have been conditioned, just like they get, and Trump knows this because he even does things to trigger them to bring about the conditioned response, just as like I'm in your head and I'm playing with your mind and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's so effective.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Egypt is on the verge, once again, becoming a world-renowned gold producer. The golden age is being rediscovered. For millennia, ancient Egyptian kingdoms prospered from unparalleled riches. Pharaohs built their empires and flaunted their abundant wealth that was made possible by the country's resource-rich gold deposits. Despite this rich history, modern Egypt remains one of the most underdeveloped gold mining countries in the world. Eitan Resources is at the center of the modern Egyptian mining world, diligently working both as the only public exploration company in Egypt today and as the advocate for mining reform with the Egyptian government. However, those that arrive early like Eitan will reap the best rewards. Eitan's discovery of the legendary Lost Mountain of Gold at Rodruin and its current aggressive drilling program there could potentially reap those rewards. Eitan Resources is focused on its 100% owned Abu Marawat concession in the Arabian-Nubian Shield, located 200 kilometers north of Centamin Sakari's world-class gold mine. Eitan possesses first-mover advantage in the under-followed jurisdiction of Egypt, which is currently undergoing mining reform. storm. To stay on top of Eitan's latest drill results and news, go to eitanresources.com. Eitan trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker AAN and on the OTC under the ticker ANLBF.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
It is effective. And I mean, this is a man who's been in front of media since the 70s. He knows how to work them better than the media does. I mean, look at it. You have an opponent who was destined to win, slated to win on all accounts. 2 days going in, she's going to win. She spent almost $2 billion on her campaign. He spent roughly $200 million, a tenth of what she spent. And he won. And the reason why is he knew how to manipulate the media. He knew how to get in there and just whenever she's doing something well, he disrupts the whole pattern of news. So no longer are they talking about his opponent. They're talking about him. And he doesn't care why they're talking about him. So he'll say those stupid things. I don't believe any of these bizarre extreme tweets and all this that he does are by accident. I think every one of them is planned. And I think he knows the media better than the media does. And that scares the media.
Yeah, and the way he can co-opt the narrative almost at will is something that, he determines the day's coverage based on his 4:30 a.m. tweet. And since many reporters out there are substance abusers and are really just getting over their first hangover of the day, it's really problematical for them to really get what's going on. They just jump at the bait. They're like, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Jackass, but they're basically in a G-string. They're walking over an alligator pit and they've got raw chicken hanging out from the jockstrap, and the alligators are just jumping up, trying to bite them, trying to get fed. And that's what the media is like, this gaggle of alligators who are just having live bait being just dragged in front of their noses, and they can't help but snap. And then Trump is there to just step on their snout so they can't open it again, and they're stuck. Right?
Absolutely. And the answer to fix Trump, as far as the media is concerned, is just start reporting the news. Don't flavor it, because then he loses control. But they won't do that because they're afraid that what he's doing might actually be positive in American eyes. So they're not going to do it. Because, since I can remember politics, I have heard one thing, man, we need to get politicians out of government, let a businessman go in there and set everything up and fix our taxes, fix our economy, get things moving forward, and then move forward from that. Well, now we've got one who did it. Ross Perot didn't quite have the stamina to do it all the way. And now we've got somebody who's doing it, and they're afraid. They can't get in his back pocket and manipulate him with money. And so now what are they doing? Unprecedented. Let's go after his tax returns. Let's see the tax returns. And we've never forced the president to ever do that in the past. Why would we all of a sudden have a precedent now? And it's because class envy. I think people really just don't like the fact that one man has accumulated so much wealth, and they make excuses for it. But the reality of it is, it's all about they want to try and somehow make him look evil. And if he says, no, you can't have my tax returns, well, you can't have mine either. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just a target-rich environment when you're dealing with these madmen, and they're mad. They've lost all context, all perspective, that he's just a guy, just a human being, and he knows, it's like your second ex-wife. She knows how to push your buttons, right? She knows how to get under your skin and make you feel things that you would never want it to feel again in your life.
Absolutely. And, speaking of that, all his divorces have been public. They've been out in the media. Yeah. And, and he survived all of those. And they think that because he at one point wanted to invest in Russia, I bet he has invested in lots of countries around the world. And, which one are they going to pick next? Yeah.
China, of course, China. That's coming next. You can see them pivoting on the narrative. So, Dr. Huber, what would you describe the majority of the left? Forget about political party. It's kind of irrelevant anyway, because I think Trump has destroyed the delineation between the two in more ways than one. But what would you diagnose the left's incredulity at the Mueller report, saying no, he didn't collude with Russia, and probably no obstruction of justice either. Here they've been getting it nonstop, 24/7 from MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, and CNN. And then all of a sudden it's like, it reminded me of 1984 when the country the guy was in, I don't remember the name of it. It's been 40 years since I read the book.
Exactly.
45. But his country's fighting a war against one other country, Oceania or something. And then all of a sudden, they're no longer fighting them. They're fighting another one. So they have all these banners. They rip them down. And now they're cheerleading against the other country like they were never fighting the first country. And that's what they've just pivoted. Like, how do you describe this? This is like mass psychosis here.
And panic and paranoia. I mean, look at how many candidates are coming out of the wood to represent the left. And that shows you how disorganized they are, and that there's no one real leader at all in that situation. And it's kind of a panic mode, definitely. But at the same time, they're trying to keep this thing from going anywhere else, because you have a past leader of the left who was, Secretary of State, who signed off on what percentage of our uranium going to Russia. Yeah. And if there's collusion there, that's probably where it's going to be. And they don't want this investigation to turn back on them. And it's kind of a scary thing, and we find out that campaign actually paid for this false report, this false narrative that's put out there, yet nobody's going after that. And that's probably where it really should be going, because look how they manipulated, not just our politics, but the media themselves for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, totally. And it's just remarkable that I knew the Mueller report was going to be nothing. I knew it. I told my friends that 2 years ago. From a legal standpoint, from everything else I followed here, the real collusion was on the other side. And this was a put-up job by the Obama administration to try to snare Trump. But without getting into the particulars, I knew that this was going to be the end result unless Trump made a mistake in how he dealt with them, which he didn't. He handled it perfectly. And he was telling these people the whole time, there's nothing here, but he's such a liar, they couldn't believe him. And then what, right?
Well, and it turns out he's correct. He keeps saying it's fake news. It's fake news. And all those media outlets now, what are they doing? They're trying to cover up so people don't remember that the collusion was the fake news he was telling everybody about. And, it's crazy. I think the American people are a lot smarter than the media gives them credit for. I think we also know that, the American people have about a 3-month memory, and we can't remember why we were paying attention to that person after 3 months. So we want to believe that somehow it was a good thing. So now, what have they done? They've inundated Americans with this Trump icon, so forth. So for the next election, I think it's going to be even harder for them to overcome that for his reelection campaign.
Yeah, what's going to happen?
I think he's going to be more successful.
Yeah. What's going to happen when he gets reelected? What are we going to have a mass suicide watch? Everybody's going to be downing the Kool-Aid?
Well, I keep waiting for Rosie O'Donnell to move from the United States. So I don't worry so much about that. It's a lot of hot air and a bunch of trigger words that are offending us, people who are somewhere in the middle. And we need to keep our eyes open and watch what happens. Yeah,
well, it's going to be remarkable. I mean, they had a breakdown when he first got elected, and I think I have the feeling that that's going to be nothing compared to what happens when he's reelected. Assuming he gets reelected, you never know what's going to happen. But
you never.
I'm beginning to think more and more that it's likely. So we'll just have to see what happens. So, hey, Dr. Huber, if we want to find out more about you, we want to connect with you over the web, where do we go?
Well, the easiest way is to start on my website, and the easiest way to get there is go to drpsycho.org, drpsycho.org. And yes, that might trigger somebody, but that's not the intent. Or you can go to, if it triggers you, mainstreammentalhealth.org.
All right.
So, and you can follow us on our Twitter account, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're all over the place.
All right, excellent. And we'll have a link, as always, to your site. And just find us over at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for a newsletter. Got one coming out soon. And also the Twitter feed is at Kerry Lutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Whether you're listening on our podcast channels or on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. Really helps a lot when you do that. It helps us a lot. Helps get these messages out, these ideas out. Since there's a war on ideas, you got to find them wherever you can. And FSN is a great place. Dr. Huber, always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be here.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.